grateful people. The S, sacrifice. Sacrifice in that I have to let go of what I want for what he wants. I have to let go of my focus off of all this stuff and focus on him. I am faithfully focusing on the Father. So I got to sacrifice the noise in my head. Y'all know what I'm talking about. All the stuff that goes on that you hear at night when it gets quiet or in the morning when you're trying to get ready, all this noise in our head. We have to sacrifice that to worship him and to keep our focus on him. The H, help and serve. When we are helping and serving others, we're worshiping God. Isn't that beautiful? That when we're helping with our right heart, our heart has to be in our helping and our serving. We're worshiping God. So it's a response of a grateful people, the sacrifice, help, and service, and it's income and monetary gifts shared for others. Income and monetary gifts shared for others. That's why when we talk about doing tithes and offerings, our time for offering, we said this is a continuation of worship. We worship with our gifts. We worship God with that. And the P, profession of appreciation and a posture of submission. When I'm worshiping him, I'm telling God how much I appreciate him. That God, you're just so wonderful. I just appreciate the fact that we are here today. I'm alive today. All that you do in my life, I appreciate. Even those tough times, I appreciate you bringing them through. Such appreciation and the posture of submission. That's why it's so, you don't even have to tell people to raise their hands when they worship God. It's kind of like a response. I just want to surrender to him. My posture is surrender. My posture is to bow down before him. My posture is to show my love for him. This is the posture of submission. So it is the worthiness of God, on-coin work done for and in the temple, a response of a grateful people, sacrifice, the H, help and serve, income and monetary gifts shared for others, and lastly, profession of appreciation and posture of submission. So, the worshiping God. All right. And I'm going to go to the R. The first R we have here, from Genesis 22:13 from the NIV. The ram taken and offered up for a burnt offering instead of the son. We know Abraham took Isaac and he bound him and put him on the altar. And he took the knife about to slay his only son, his son. And he looked around when the angel said, don't do this. I now know that you worship. He looked around. There was a ram caught in the thicket. And he offered that up for a burnt offering instead of his son. The ram signifies protection. It signifies protection. So even in this situation, God was letting Abraham know, I'm still protecting you and your son. That here Abraham is being obedient. God told him to do it, he was going to do it. And I can't imagine a father's heart with a knife in his hand, with his son tied and bound, sitting on wood about to slay him. But he was going to be obedient to what God had told him to do. And God is showing him with the ram that I have still protecting you. I'm protecting you and protecting your son. And what's so interesting is the burnt offering sacrifice was typically a bull, a goat, or sheep, or birds. And Pastor went through that a couple of years about all the different sacrifices and why they didn't. It definitely wasn't a ram. It wasn't a ram. It's typically a bull or a goat or a sheep. The ram was significant because it was symbolizing of that protection God was giving him. So I appreciate that. All righty. Okay. The E. See, now I'm going to get through stuff. Pastor doesn't get through all here. I'm going to get through it. The E from verse 3 from the King James.
No comment.
One of my favorites. Early in the morning. Early in the morning. It's one of my favorites. Early in the morning. Verse 3 says, and Abraham rose early in the morning, saddled his ass, and took 2 of his young men with him, and Isaac his son, and clave the wood for the burnt offering, and rose up and went into the place of which God had told him. He rose up early in the morning. What does that mean? Early in the morning is a symbolic of release and peace. I don't know when you have your time with God, but Pastor and I both like to have the first thing in the morning to get time with him. And Pastor typically goes out in the family room or somewhere in the room, and I stay in the bedroom. And I oftentimes like to open the window because it's so peaceful. You know, we live in the Shalom country. The Shalom country. And sometimes I hear owls out there, or whatever, but it's so incredibly peaceful. And that early time is such a beautiful time to spend with God because there's just so much peace there. And I try to do is I spend that time with him, and then I read and I do my prayer time, and then I just get quiet time before him. And just let God speak to me and share with me what he wants to share for me for that day. And it's so significant for me because I have, as you all know, I work 2 jobs, and the day can be extremely filled with stuff. And I can be just all over the place all day. And I need that time early in the morning to spend with him to really get direction from God and that clarity. And that whole thing, I always ask God, prioritize my day. Because I don't need to be doing stuff that I don't need to be doing that day. And so I want to ensure that all that I do in that day, it really has significance. You know, I don't want to waste time. I have spent years in jobs and situations where I spent too much time wasting time. Mm-hmm. And I ask God to prioritize my day. In that early time, it's just a sweet time. It's quiet and it's just so peaceful. There's a peace there. And I can just spend time with him one-on-one and just hear from God. So I love that. So it's a release in peace, a release in peace. And some of these others I don't have. And the H we have from chapter 22, verse 1. Here I am. Here I am. It's interesting because both times here, when Abraham is called, he always says, here I am. Verse 1, he says, it came to pass after these things that God did tempt Abram. We know that means he tested him. And said unto Abram, he said, behold, here I am. And then when he and Isaac were going to the mount by themselves, Isaac had a question. Now, Father? And he said, here I am, my son. He's like, now, I see the wood and I see this, but where is the burnt offering? Because it made sense. We're going to offer something. And he said that God will provide himself an offering. So I love the fact that he says, here I am. What is that significant symbolizes? It symbolizes surrender and security. Surrender and security. Here I am. And there are so many songs. When we sing a song on the worship list, here I am, here I stand. You know, it's surrendering unto God. Father, here I am. I'm not trying to have anything I've done. I'm not trying to do things my own way. Here I am, whole before you. I'm here to allow you to show me and to speak in my heart. That serenity and that security. And having that security to know that whatever God tells me to do, whatever God leads me, then I am able to do it, and it's for my good. It's always for my good. It symbolizes serenity and security. It also symbolizes serenity. It's surrender and security, serenity and sincerity. Serenity and sincerity. There's something, when we come before God, there's something about not coming with our own agenda or with a proud heart. Really have to come before God with a humble heart. And it's you can't bluff God. You can't bluff him. I've been a part of situations here, people, and they pray these really elaborate prayers, and got a lot of thous in them and thuses and all this stuff, very elaborate. And I'm like, I can't do that, because I want to show God my humility. I don't want to show him what I know. God knows what I know and I don't know. I can't fake it. You know, I can't fake him. He already knows me. So I want to be sincere before him. And when he says, here I am, it's saying, I am sincerely yours. I sincerely belong to you. And it also symbolizes sensitivity, which is my favorite, to the promptings from the Holy Spirit. Sensitivity to the promptings from the Holy Spirit. The more we spend time with the Holy Spirit, the more we are sensitive to his promptings. It's, you know, we talked about this in new members class, that it's like you go into a room full of folk, it can be 1,000 babies all crying, and you say, ooh, there's mine, she's crying over there in that corner. Or there's mine, he's crying over there in that corner. You know their voice. And the more we spend time with the Holy Spirit, the more we know his voice. It's really, you really have to spend time with God and with the Holy Spirit in order to really know God. There's no shortcut to that. When I lived in Maryland, I had a neighbor who said, well, my wife, she does all that for the family. Your wife can't do that for the family. You have to have an individual time with God. And the more you spend time with listening to the Holy Spirit and those promptings, the more we will hear that. The more we hear that. And when I say, here I am, God, here I am before you, I want to be open to receive from him. That's an opportunity for us to open up to hear the voice of the Holy Spirit. And sometimes it seems like it's like a sensing, you know, maybe I shouldn't, go over there today. Maybe I should do this or whatever. And that's sensing. And the more we are sensitive to moving in that, the more we will be sensitized to what he's saying. Even if you step out on what you thought you heard and you mess up, that's all right. You did it trying to hear from God and trying to hear the voice of God. One of my friends years ago, this is so cute, her little daughter had received the baptism of the Holy Spirit with the evidence of speaking tongues. She was probably about 8 years old. And she just, kids have like no inhibitions whatsoever. You tell them they can do something, man, they just take off with it. So she said, she came home, she says, Mommy, the Holy Spirit told me that I should give away all my clothes. And she said, did the Holy Spirit tell you that? And she said, yes, Mom, the Holy Spirit told me to do all my clothes. So she said, well, you know what, let's kind of wait and see if we hear something else from the Holy Spirit. She said, no, Mom, because I already gave away my clothes. She said, wait a minute, now you said the Holy Spirit told you to give away your clothes. And you gave away your clothes. And she said, I gave away my clothes. And she said, why do you think the Holy Spirit told you to give away your clothes? And she said, because I'm going to get some new clothes. She said, now, did the Holy Spirit tell you where you getting these new clothes from? And she said she was trying to be sensitive because, she's trying to hear from God, and this young, just sweet little girl, she's just the sweetest thing, and she's probably about 20 now, she's the sweetest thing. And she said, well, did the Holy Spirit say anything about where you'll get some more clothes from? She said, no, Mommy, but she said, Holy Spirit told me to give away all my clothes. She said, well, who would you give them to? She said, I gave them to those people down the street. Well, down the street there was a halfway house, and it was for women who abused women and their children. And she took her clothes in bags and took them to those folk. And she said, well, I think that's just a beautiful thing. She said, I don't know what you're going to wear tomorrow, but I think that's a beautiful thing. So within the same week, I believe it was, there was somebody at their church that had a daughter who was growing out her clothes. And she came to her, she said, you know what, I got all these clothes, and my daughter has grown out of them. Because this lady had like 4 boys or 3 boys and 1 girl, and that one girl had everybody, grandmas and aunts and stuff always gave her clothes. So she had all these clothes with these tags on them, and she said she's growing out of these clothes. Do you think your daughter can use these clothes? So this girl got a whole new wardrobe full of clothes with tags on them, and it just blessed me so much. And the mom said, she said, now I had to tell God, ask God's forgiveness. She said, because when she did that, I didn't think she heard from God. And she said, if I had a few years ago, I probably would have whipped her. But she said, I knew she was trying, she was learning how to hear from God. And she said, for God to,